The story begins with a car driving down the road. Suddenly, a man fell right in front of the car. He was screaming and holding his leg with his hands. The car stopped and a man looked out of the window. The man who was lying on the road screamed and told him that he almost killed him. The man in the car told him that he didn't even have time to hit him. Another man asked him if he really didn't hurt him. He told him that his leg was broken and he would have to pay for it. The back window of the car opened and a guy named Hong Dolly appeared. He coughed and held a handkerchief near his mouth and then asked the man how much money he wanted. The man thought it was a jackpot. In front of him was the young master of the Hong family, who has incredible wealth and illness since childhood. He was a spendthrift who looked at money as dirt. The man heard that he is the biggest fool from whom it is easy to get money. He was very lucky this time, and therefore we need to ask him for more money. He showed the sign of the cross with his fingers and told Dolly that it would cost at least 100,000 to treat his leg. The young master ordered his subordinate to give the man money. A man in a suit and glasses got out of the car. In his hands was a small case. There was money in it. After that, he leaned over to the scammer man and told him that the case contained exactly 100,000. The man who was lying on the road widened his eyes and thought that he really gave him 100,000, and he didn't even blink an eye. He stood up abruptly and bowed to the young master and then thanked him. He smiled ominously and thought that Dolly was a fool and a fool. Next time he will wait here to repeat the same thing. He can make a fortune thanks to it. He will definitely get rich. The young master looked at him and asked him if his leg was already okay. The man looked at him questioningly, and Dolly told him that he apparently did not understand the situation. Although he loves to spend money, he spends it through fair transactions, and since the man used his injury to bargain with Dolly, he will have to fulfill his part of the deal and get injured. He asked the man if he was right. The man opened his eyes wide and asked the young master what he meant. Suddenly, Dolly's subordinate hit the man's leg with a bat, causing him to scream in pain. The car drove away, and the fraudster lay on the road and held his leg with his hands. Money lay around him. He was screaming that he had broken his leg. His leg hurts a lot. At this time, the driver of the car asked Dolly if it was worth 100,000. He told him that even though this amount was on par with the pocket money that Mr. and Madam gives every day, it was still a lot of money. The young master spends a lot of money every day, so he should find an economist to invest in. It will be much more profitable. Dolly held a cane in his hands and told him that he was right. The main character's name was Hong Dolly. To be more precise, now this is the person who acquired Dolly's body. He came to this world called Earth not long ago. He is very lucky that the Hong family is rich and his parents give him a large amount of money every day. But unfortunately, this body was very weak and sick, so even for normal movement he had to use a crutch. In addition, he has a magic system. It is called the extravagance system. He can charge his body with energy and slowly restore it by spending money. To put it simply, he should invest his parents' money into something profitable so that he gets even more money, which he uses by the system to restore his body faster. But Dolly spent a lot of money on bets, the results of which can be imagined. He also invested in a rental business, but in the end, the owner of it simply ran away with the money. He bought patents for inventions, but it turned out that all this was useless. He lost so much, and all this just for the sake of his status as a spendthrift. Dolly told the driver that if he talked too much, old memories might come back to him. They need to go home because the young master heard that an important guest had arrived there. After some time, they returned home. The Hong family's house was huge. It looked like a palace. All the residents of the house shouted that the young master had returned. The room had an expensive interior. Everything was in shades of blue, white, and gold. There was a table in the middle of the room with glasses and flowers on it. The father of the family told his son that he was glad that he had returned. He introduced him to his Aunt Tang. His father told him that Uncle Tang's father and his father's father once solved all difficulties together. Uncle smiled. He adjusted his glasses with his hand and told Dolly that they had not seen each other for many years and he had grown so much during this time. His mother smiled and told him that her son was back. A girl was sitting next to her and the young master noticed her. He looked at her. She had dark hair and large breasts. She looked embarrassed. Dolly's mother told him that this was Uncle Tang's daughter. Her name was Musen. She told him that she was very beautiful. From now on, she will be his bride. Dolly opened his eyes wide and asked her if Musen would really be his bride. She blushed and looked away, and Dolly's mother told him that his grandfather and Grandpa Tang had arranged an engagement party for them. She slapped her on the butt with her hand and told him that everything would be fine and they would have a big, fat boy. Musen opened her eyes wide and asked her what she was doing. After that, she puffed up her cheeks and lips indignantly, and her eyebrows furrowed. Thus, now Dolly unexpectedly has a bride. It was so unexpected that even the system could not have predicted such an event. Thanks to the system, he will become the strongest in the universe. Muzan blushed and looked at the young master and thought that he was the man she would marry. He looked quite healthy and she hoped that he would not die soon. 10 minutes ago, a beautiful black car was driving down the road. Muzan told her father that she did not want to be Dolly's wife. She has never seen him, and everyone says that he has been weak since childhood and only spends money. Besides, he will soon die from illness. She asked him if she would really be happy with such a person. Her father responded by saying that their family is now in a bad situation and he cannot fix it, but the entire Hong family is very strong and only they can help them. In addition, they were originally supposed to get married according to her grandfather's wishes. She must help her father. She rubbed her cheek with her finger and angrily told him that he was using her as a commodity. If Dolly dies on the way home, then she will not be a widow. Her father told her not to worry because they would pretend to propose an engagement, and when their problem was solved, he would call off the engagement and take her home. Muzan asked him if this was true. He laughed and told her that he wasn't lying to her, but before that, she needed to be more obedient. Currently, she was looking at the young master. Her cheeks were flushed. She was thinking that she should forget about her dreams. She will do it for her father and family. She just has to pretend a little. She's not stupid, and she should be able to cope with Dolly. Muzan playfully straightened her hair with her hand and thought that he could easily charm him with her charm. But Dolly looked calm. He told his mother that he was not interested in Uncle Tang's daughter and then asked her for money because he wanted to go play. He thought that this was really a joke. It is better to continue investing money than to spend it on a woman. Investment may not pay off, but spending on women is generally pointless. Muzan frowned with displeasure and thought that he was a sick spendthrift. He humiliated her in public. She's not interested in him either. She stood up and told Dolly's mother, Lan, that since the young master didn't like her, she would leave. She thanked her for her hospitality, and Lan asked her what happened. The father of the Hong family called out to his son and asked him what he was saying. Father Muzan smiled awkwardly and called her. Lan pointed at her son and told him to wait. He can't help but agree to this. He must take a look at Uncle Tang's daughter again. He may not like her, but they like her, and if he doesn't marry her, she won't give him money. Dolly opened his eyes and mouth wide in surprise, and then with a sad look told her that he agreed to this. He thought that Muzan was not so simple, and she began to seduce him from the moment they met. Although she doesn't understand much about psychology, it's enough to figure it out. Lan stood up and walked over to her son. She handed him a bank card and told him that everything was settled. He should take 300,000 yuan and buy a gift for his fiancée. He took the card in his hands and told her that he understood everything. After some time, an expensive car drove out of the gates of the Hong family palace. Muzan and Dolly were sitting in the back seat. He looked at her, and she tried not to look in his direction. He was thinking that if she was using his mother to put pressure on him, he would tease her a little. Does he need to buy a gift for their welcoming ceremony? He knows the place to buy jades, jewelry, and antiques. Dolly thought that if he bought even the most expensive thing, it would only cost a few 100,000 yuan. He'll see what she does with it. A couple of minutes later, they found themselves on a large shopping street. The sellers were shouting for people to come up to them and look at their wares. This is a watch from the Tang dynasty. Another seller shouted that they had an 80,000 yuan necklace that was created during the war period. Dolly called Muzan his bride and told her that she could choose whatever she wanted. She smiled and told him that's what she would do. A few minutes later, she was holding a small crystal in her hand. She told him that it cost 300 yuan and she wanted it. He looked at her and thought that he thought she would choose the more expensive item, but she deliberately chose the cheap item. She really was a fool. Dolly asked her where she wants to go now. Mushin turned around and told him that they were going to the jade store. He was surprised, and a couple of minutes later they were in the jade store. They stood near the counter as a store employee inspected a small purple stone they had recently purchased. Dolly looked at a small device. It was on the eye of a store employee. He thought that it should be used to recognize the value of an item. He wondered if this was not just a broken stone. Could this really be a good thing? He couldn't understand what Muzan was thinking about. Suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by a worker. He shouted sharply with delight. He told them that it turns out that it is a purple sphere that disappeared during the 5th World War. The employee asked her where she got it from. He showed them 3 of his fingers and loudly told her that he would pay 3 million for the sphere. He asked her to sell it to him. Dolly was shocked. He blushed, and sweat appeared on his face, and he awkwardly rubbed his neck with his hand. Muzan confidently told the employee that she agreed to sell it. The young master didn't understand how this was possible. Was the 300 yuan stone he bought her a real treasure? Is this really a coincidence? He was thinking about the fact that she was going directly to the jade store to evaluate it. She knew exactly the value of this stone. Muzan slammed a wad of money on his chest and asked him what happened. She thanked him for the gift and told the gentleman that she really liked it. Dolly looked at the bills, and then his eyes lit up with happiness, and he thought that she was a master at making money. If she helps him, then he can. But he did not finish his thought because Muzan went ahead of him and he extended his hand to her. He called her his wife and asked her to wait for him. He asked to teach him her skills. Uncle Tang's daughter looked pleased. She arrogantly told him not to call her wife because it sounds strange. Other than that, the young master was not interested in her. And she didn't finish the thought because Dolly told her that he was just joking. He told her that he was offering her a deal he would buy her anything that she could profit from. Muzan looked at him and asked him if he was really saying this seriously. The young master smiled and told her that he didn't tell her anything strange. He just didn't have the brains to make money, but she had it. Therefore, he is ready to buy her everything that she considers promising, and the only condition is that he will pay for everything. Muzan rubbed her neck with her hand and indifferently told him that she understood him, but she didn't care about it. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise. She looked in the direction of the sound and saw a man in a suit pushing a man. He shouted at him to get out of here because he was blocking the passage. He should go somewhere else. The men were angry, their faces turned red, and so the man in the middle told him that he was talking nonsense. They simply decided to look at the hotel, which is famous for its positive reviews. He asked him why they couldn't enter the hotel. His friend told the man in the suit that if he couldn't let them in, there was no need to push them. The hotel worker looked arrogant. He told them that they should know their place because they are just workers and earn very little. And they are a 3-star hotel. He asked them if they knew their prices. The worker told them that they were dirty and that their guests might not like it, so he advised them to leave. He waved his hand for them to leave and told the men to go to the restaurant across the street and eat there if they had enough money for it. The man stood up. They walked in the other direction from the employee and talked about how the employee was too arrogant. They would like to beat him up. The employee emotionlessly told them not to come back here again. The men saw the restaurant. It looked cozy and nice, so they said that they would actually eat there. A woman in a red classic dress came out to them. The men smiled and asked her to cook food for them. They wanted some beer. The woman smiled awkwardly and spread her arms to the sides, and then apologized to them and told them that they were a little late. The restaurant is officially closed from today. The men were upset. They asked her in surprise why this happened. Why did they close? The restaurant worker told them that it was because of the 3-star hotel, because they were buying up all the best products, so they could not continue to work. Their little restaurant should have closed long ago, so she will have to sell this restaurant. The men were furious. They said that they hoped the hotel would go bankrupt soon. That's why they are so arrogant. It pissed them off. The man in the blue shirt asked how they could go bankrupt if their business was only getting better. Suddenly, their dialogue was interrupted by Dolly. He loudly told them that the hotel could go bankrupt. Everyone turned to look at him. They asked him if this was really possible. Is he telling them the truth? The young master and Mushin stood opposite them. They looked confident, and he asked the woman how much her restaurant cost. He told her that he would buy it. The woman told Dolly that this place was already doomed, and they would not be able to make money on it. But if they wanted, she would sell the restaurant for 1 million. Dolly told her that he would give her 3 million, 1 million for the purchase, the second million to hire expensive staff, and the rest to buy food for the next 10 days, where all food would be free. His subordinate stood behind him. He was holding a briefcase in his hands. There was money in it. The men called him boss and asked him if he was serious. Did they hear everything correctly? Will food be free for 10 days? The young master loudly told them that they had heard correctly. He made a generous offer to this restaurant, and now everyone can eat enough food. They can eat as much as they want for 10 days. Everyone was shocked. They smiled contentedly, and their faces turned red. They rejoiced with happiness. The man in the blue shirt said that eating white rice might be possible. The man in the cap called his brother and told him to call all their friends and relatives. The woman shouted to her boss to start cooking because they were working again. Muzan looked at him and told him that she had offered to buy him this restaurant, but she did not want to make it free. Dolly smiled calmly and told her that he was wasteful. If you lost money, then why not lose it again? She thought about what was he going to do. 3 days later. There was a crowd of people in front of the restaurant. Everyone was making noise and shouting. A restaurant worker shouted to the crowd of people not to crowd because there was enough food for everyone. Someone asked to put it on the internet, and someone said that there was a lottery for lunch. People continued to crowd outside the restaurant. Someone was pushed. The man shouted that they could go to a 3-star hotel if they were in such a hurry. Another person asked who would even go to this hotel. He said that the manager there is an idiot. At this time, the hotel director was scolding the manager. He asked him what measures he had taken. Does he even understand their loss in profit? The director shouted to him that they only had a couple of guests a day. He ordered him to go and beg people to come to the hotel and dine with them. If he brings less than 3 people today, then he advises him to pack his things and get out of here. The director called him a moron and told him to leave. The manager bowed before him and agreed with him. Sometime later in the Hong family palace. It was already night, and the moon was shining high in the sky. Maids and maids walked along the corridors of the palace. Dolly was sitting on a soft bed in a lotus field, and he told the system to begin the check. A status window appeared in front of him. His strength was 36, speed was 41, agility was 52, and health was 39. He thought about taking a look at how his numbers had improved after such a productive day. Dolly was determined for the best, and on the screen a +10 was added to all his indicators. His eyes opened wide, and he seemed to glow with happiness. He thought that all indicators had increased by 10 units. This is more than usual, and even ordinary people have no more than 80 points. He tensed his body, muscles appeared on his arms, and his abs were visible on his stomach, and Dolly thought that at this rate he could return to normal life. Suddenly there was a knock on his room. The maid told the young master that Miss Tang was waiting for him downstairs. He asked her what happened. After that he said that he would come now. He quickly got dressed and went downstairs. Muzin was sitting on a chair. The young master called her his wife and asked her what happened. Does she really want to spend more money today? She told him not to call her that, and that she was going to school tomorrow. Muzin asked him if he would go with her. Dolly asked her why she should go to school. There was a strawberry in her spoon, and she looked at him with her eyes wide open, and then asked him if he was really stupid. Is she the only one who remembers that he used to go to school until he had health problems? Has he at least forgotten where the school is? Dolly coughed and covered his mouth with a handkerchief, and then told her that he would go. He thought about the fact that he didn't drop out of school because of illness. Muzin stretched her hands and told him that then she would go home because she was not used to sleeping outside the house, but their desserts were very tasty. He looked at her and thought that she had a beautiful body, but his body was still weak. She put her finger to her lips and wished him good night in a sweet voice. Dolly blushed and closed his eyes. He thought that he should spend more money to restore his health. The next day at school, there was an expensive car parked near the school. Dolly and Muzin were walking towards the entrance to the school. They looked gorgeous. Other students immediately saw them. The guy with brown hair told his friend to look at them. He asked him if this was the idiot Dolly. His friend told him that the rich boy had returned to school. A guy with brown hair noticed a girl next to him and asked his friend if it was Muzin. His friend asked him why she was going with this idiot. Suddenly, the guy told everyone to see who came to school. The fool is truly back here. Dolly looked at him questioningly. This guy was Liu Mingcheng, and he was sitting on the hood of his orange car. The guy with brown hair asked Mushin why she was going with the young master. He asked Mingcheng if there were people at school who didn't know that he liked her. He told him that Dolly had the courage to come to school with her. He called him a pig and said that he was crossing all boundaries. Mingcheng was sitting on the hood of his orange expensive car and told Muzin to come to him. Dolly asked his bride who this healthy guy was. She asked him if he really didn't know him. Muzin told him that this was the enemy of the Hong family, the eldest son of the Liu family. She approached Mingcheng, and he told her that he was waiting for her. He told her to quickly come to him. Dolly thought that he was really his enemy. Looking at this guy, he realized that he had been bullied at this school before. He walked towards them and stood in front of his bride, so Mingcheng opened his eyes wide and frowned, and then asked him if he dared to stand in his way. He swung his fist at the young master and asked him if he really wanted to be beaten again. Dolly calmly looked at him and thought that this guy has terrifying speed, and just yesterday he would not have been able to avoid such a blow. But today everything is different. Mingcheng hit him sharply with his fist, but the young master was able to dodge his blow and then hit him on the leg with his cane. Mingcheng fell into the trash can and screamed, and the brown hair guy and his friends started calling his name. He screamed at them to get him out of the trash can. They grabbed his legs and began to pull him out of there. They called him master. Mingcheng stood up with banana peels on his hair and trash on his clothes. The school students immediately began discussing this. The guy asked if they saw it. He said Min Chang fell into a trash can. Another student laughed and said that he deserved it because he bullied everyone. The students asked whether Dolly was really afraid of him. They haven't seen him for a long time, but he has changed so much. He has gotten better, but Min Chang is a brainless fool. Min Chang grabbed the young master by the scruff of his neck in anger and asked him how dare he do this. He shouted at him that he would destroy him. Dolly's cane fell to the floor and he groaned, and then fell to the floor and screamed. Muzin stretched her hands towards him and asked the thug where he had the strength to do such a thing. He told her that he didn't even hit him. She hugged the groom and called Min Chang a crazy fool. She told him that he knew that Dolly had a weak body. Muzin asked him if he really wanted to kill someone. The brute opened his eyes wide. He panicked and told her that he didn't do anything and the young master was just pretending. Dolly thought that the bride stood up for him. He did not expect this. The students watched this situation. One guy said that although Dolly is an idiot, his family is very influential, and if something happens to him, the Liu family will drive Min Chang out of their ranks. They will have something to look at. The other student laughed. The thug heard their dialogue, and so he smiled and made a kind face, and then leaned towards Dolly and extended his hand to him. He called him dear brother, and then asked him what happened to him. Maybe he needs to be taken to the hospital. Min Chang leaned even closer to him and told him to his face that he knew what he was faking, but only this time he would not do anything because he could still take revenge on him in the future. Dolly's face turned pale with fear, and then he pointed his finger at him and called Muzin his wife. He told her that Min Chang kept threatening him. After that, he coughed uncertainly, and she shouted to the thug that she would call the teacher for further proceedings. Min Chang told her not to do that. He admitted his guilt and asked Dolly if he wanted him to kneel in front of him. He fell to the floor and knelt in front of the young master and begged him for mercy. The thug took money out of his vest and told Dolly that he now only had 500,000. He would give it to him for treatment. He will pay him for moral compensation. After that, he hung his head down and left. He said it was a shame. The young master held a card with money in his hands and smiled. He said that he had earned 500,000. Muzin asked him if everything was okay with him. He smiled contentedly and asked him if she was really worried about him, even though she understood that he was pretending. She was blushing, and there was sweat on her face, and she asked him what nonsense he was talking about. The bride angrily told him that she was afraid that something bad would happen to him, and that her father would blame her for it. Suddenly Muzin became embarrassed and turned away from him, and then told him that she was grateful to him for standing up for her. Dolly told her that this was his responsibility because she was his bride. She became even more embarrassed and told him that he was shameless. After school, they were driving in a car. Muzin asked him where they would go today. He smiled and told her that they made a lot of money when they invested in the restaurant. He invited her to go where she could spend the money. Muzin asked him if he really thinks he will earn a lot when he spends so much money. She told him that he was indeed wasteful because in order to make a profit, you need to calm down. Sometimes you shouldn't look for great deals yourself, and you just need to wait. Dolly asked her what she meant. How is this possible? Suddenly, he saw a man outside the car window, and he loudly told the driver to stop the car. They got out of the car. A girl was standing on the bridge. They started asking her not to jump off the bridge. Milan asked her to get down from there. She asked her what happened. They told her that if she had any problems, they would help her. The girl was beautiful, her blonde hair flowing in the wind. She looked at the sunset and said that this is all to promote events, but everyone is helpless before the sound of love. She cried, and then looked towards the bride and groom, and said that it was necessary for the heavenly spirit to allow the aroma of justice played on the flute of sadness to dissolve. A couple of minutes later, the girl and Muzin were sitting on the road, and Dolly stood next to them. He told her not to cry. The young master asked her if she could tell them what happened to her. What if they can help her? He told her to tell them about how that fool abandoned her and ran away 3 years later. Muzin asked him what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Is he funny? Dolly awkwardly told her that he was just joking. The girl looked at them and said that everything was fine. She thanked them for their help and told them that they could not help her because it was her own fault that she had offended the man who had almost driven her into despair. Muzin told her that this is a bad person if he almost drove the girl to suicide. She asked her to tell them who it was, because then they could deal with him. The girl grabbed her head with her hand and told them that they would only anger him. The bride told her that they could not pass by without helping the girl in tears. She pointed her finger in the distance and called him a cripple, and then told the girl that he had no opportunity to do anything, so she should give him the opportunity to at least anger this man. The girl told them that her name was Lai Nianwei. She was just a young unknown singer and the founder of the girl chasing group. There are 2 other singers in her group. Muzin and Dolly opened their eyes wide in surprise and asked her if she really was the lead singer of the group. Nianwei covered her eyes with her hand, her nose turned red, and she told them that nothing special happened, she just had a fight with her boss. Their group was relegated to the background, and even 2 years later the elite did not see the songs they wrote. Beaumont nobility, high society, elite. She told them that because of the contract and the inability to get out of it, they couldn't do anything about it. Her mother, despite the difficulties and her poor health, still helped her, and now she feels like garbage. Because of her, 2 of her comrades and 7 had sunk to the very bottom, so she came here to distract herself. Nianwei told them that she just really enjoyed singing. Muzin was looking at her fiancé, and he noticed this, so he asked her why she was looking at him like that. She asked him what he was up to. He frowned and told her that he just wanted to help Nianwei. But Muzin didn't believe him. She asked him if that was all. He answered in the affirmative, and she asked him if he knew how to do it. He answered her negatively. Mushin stood up and walked over to her fiancé, then whispered to him that she had an idea, but she wasn't sure it would work. Dolly told her that he was listening to her carefully. She started telling him her plan, and he blushed and made a dirty face, and then told her that she smelled delicious. She blushed and asked him if he was even listening to her. He laughed awkwardly and told her that he understood everything. The young master coughed and said with a satisfied look to Nianwei that he could pay for her mother's treatment, but not for nothing. They were going to rent a big stadium in 3 days, so she had to sing for them with her band. He said she could sing as much as she wanted, and they would talk about payment later. Nianwei smiled and asked him if it was true. She happily told Dolly that she would definitely bring her sisters. Dolly told her that they would do everything in the best possible way. 3 days later. It was a huge concert hall. A crowd of fans shouted that they loved the group Chasing Girls. They held signs in their hands and kept shouting it. Muzin asked her fiancé if these were all spectators. He grinned and told her that these are people who owed money, and now, in order to work off the debt, they are creating an atmosphere here. He asked her if she liked it here. Muzin calmly closed her eyes and told him that she didn't like noise. She comes from quiet circles. Nianwei stood on stage with a guitar in her hands and told her friend that this was their first live performance, so they should try hard. The purple-haired girl was holding a bass guitar in her hands. She told her that they would support her. Nianwei told her that today they would show what Chasing Girls could do. She asked the audience into the microphone if they were ready. The crowd of people screamed, and she told them that they were starting. They started singing, so people in the audience started talking about them. The guy with the short hair said that he usually bought the songs, but he didn't expect the concert to be so great. Another person told him that he was right, and that was very cool. He asked, "What song is this?" The guy with the short hair said that he has become a fan of Chasing Girls. He loves them. The girls continued to sing and play musical instruments. They could be heard even on the street. People passing by said that there was some kind of concert in the hall. They didn't know what kind of band they were, but they sounded cool. People said that the girl's voice was very beautiful. The man pointed his finger at the entrance to the concert hall and told his friend what was open there. He invited him to go and see it. The crowd was delighted. They thought that Nianwei was very beautiful. This band's songs were great too. They were surprised that this was really a free concert. People have asked what the name of this group is. Someone even invited their friends to the concert. They were even recorded on camera. Muzin got up and started dancing, and Dolly looked at her in shock. The next day, it was the building of a large company. The employee called his boss. He asked him if he had seen the news. He told him that Nianwei's group performed at 3 free concerts. Their group blew up the entire internet, and now their company is going to take them back. The boss looked serious. He had a huge scar on his face, and he was smoking a thick cigar. He was hugging a beautiful girl with green eyes. The boss called their group 3 fools. He asked the employee if they didn't have an agreement to remove them. He ordered him to call the right people and bring the group to him. Meanwhile, a group of girls stood in front of Dolly and Mushin. They bowed to them and thanked them loudly. They opened their eyes in surprise, and Muzin pulled her hands towards Nianwei and told the girls that they shouldn't thank them because now she is their fan. The young master told them that they were now so popular on the internet that they would be considered superstars when they returned to the company. His fiancée told them that now they don't have to worry about being kicked out of the company or being left behind by others. Nianwei furrowed her eyebrows and told them that they did not want to return to the company. The purple-haired girl agreed with her and told them that the boss would continue to discriminate against them. The leader of the group put her hands together in a prayer gesture and asked Dolly if he could help them again. She told him that they wanted to join their company as a singer. The young master looked at her skeptically and asked her how he could help them if his company was not in the entertainment industry. Muzan told them that the issue with the entertainment industry would be quickly resolved if they just bought a place. She told Nineway that her current contract with the company would be the main problem, and then asked her how much blue energy appeared around his body, and it was as if his soul was coming out of him. It was as if he was looking around the rooms of the palace and thinking about if there was an animal in their house that he could take advantage of. Did Dolly see his mother's cat? It slept peacefully, and then Dolly shouted that he would seize control of it. Dolly's soul moved into the cat. He woke up and opened his eyes. The cat looked around, and the young master thought that he really controls this. He sees and hears through the cat. He heard someone's steps and looked in the direction of the sound. Dolly thought about whether there was someone here. It was Muzan. She was wearing pink short pajamas, and he thought that she was approaching him. His bride sat down and called the cat named Shidlo. She stroked it with her hand, and the young master mentally greeted her and called her beautiful. Dolly blushed and smiled contentedly, and then thought that although he doesn't really like cats, he can interact with people in the form of animals. He frowned and thought that he would now see a suitable angle. Muzan blushed and smiled joyfully, and then called the cat cute. And the cat had a clear view of her panties, and then Dolly thought that he adores cats. A few days later, at a 3-star hotel, the young master asked the secretary what invitation she was talking about. He was sitting at the table, and Zaioi was standing in front of him. She called him master and told him that it was time to meet the director of the Checks-In Girls group Chasing Girls. He asked her if they really refused to negotiate with him. Dolly told her that he would not be so easily persuaded to spend 30 million. Muzan sat silently on the sofa and looked at the tablet. Zaioi adjusted her glasses with her finger and told the young master that their hotel had lost popularity among guests, and they were also operating at a loss. Muzan told her husband that she used to worry about the stability and profitability of the hotel, but she realized how much money they spent on it. She asked him if he had enough money to compensate the group. He grabbed his head with his hands and clenched his teeth, and then told her that this group was already popular and could lead the entertainment industry, but they were hidden by the boss. No one can even contact them. Muzan looked at the tablet screen and told him that the group's popularity on the internet had fallen sharply and all articles with their participation were hushed up. It's obvious that these girls could be the next superstars, but she feels like they've been banned from performing. She was unhappy about this and told him that their boss had no idea what he was thinking. Dolly was angry. He slammed his hands on the table and told them that since he was neglecting Nine-Way Group, then it was time to take them away. He must take them for himself. After that, he abruptly placed his head on the table, his body trembling and his face expressing helplessness. He told Muzan that he could not win the negotiations. She calmly told him that there were other ways to negotiate. He stood up abruptly and asked her what method she was talking about. Muzan smiled and told the young master that they could simply find dirt on their opponent. Sometime later, that same evening, a black expensive car stood near a small building. The driver asked Dolly why he thought breaking into the basement of someone else's company late at night was a good idea. Why did he take his mother's cat with him? The young master looked serious. He told him not to be distracted and to wait for him in the car. There was a red cat in his hands, and the driver agreed with him. Dolly used his new ability of spiritual connection, and his soul moved into a cat. He, in the body of a cat, quickly jumped out of the car and ran towards the company building. Dolly remembered Muzan's words that such people always have dirty secrets. If he finds important incriminating evidence, then the negotiations will be much easier. Then he became embarrassed and thought about it. But now he controls Shidlo in order to infiltrate the boss's office. He won't believe it if he doesn't find anything there. He jumped to the top of the building and said that in his cat form he could go to places where a normal person could not go. He called himself smart. The cat climbed into the window of the building and was almost slammed by the window, so he screamed in displeasure and said that Shidlo was very fat. The cat found himself in the corridor of the company building and thought that first he needed to find the director's office. He saw the sign and said that he had found it. After that, the young master in the body of a cat jumped up and pressed the elevator call button with his paw. A few minutes later, he came out on the floor he needed and saw a table with the number 603. The cat said that this is the director's office. The office door was slightly open, and so he thought that he was very lucky. He carefully looked inside the room and said that there was no one there. The cat happily walked inside and saw the director's computer, so Dolly laughed and said it was great. He climbed up on the table and said it was just a child's game because it was so easy to do. There must definitely be incriminating evidence on this computer. He pressed the computer's power button and asked it to boot faster. But suddenly, a window with a password appeared on the screen, so Dolly got angry and said that there was a password. The director was cunning. He thought about how he would find incriminating evidence on the director without a computer password. Most likely, his plan is doomed to fail. Is it time for him to give up? Suddenly, he heard a strange sound, and therefore thought about what kind of noise it was. Now the ears and eyes belonged to him, and he just heard a strange sound. He looked around seriously and said that there are other people here. The cat jumped off the table and then walked along the corridor of the building. He walked towards the sound and heard people sighing. A female voice playfully said that she shouldn't do this, and a male voice asked her why she was worried. It was the director and a woman. The cat crept up behind them and heard the girl telling the director that people would see them, and if his older brother found out about this, they would be fired. He hugged the girl and told her that there was no one here. They would be careful, and then his brother would never know about it. The girl told him that then they should go to his office because she was embarrassed to do this here. The director told her that the thought of being caught turned him on, and then he laughed vulgarly. There was a small collar around the cat's neck with a camera built into it. Dolly smiled and thought that Shidlo had captured a great moment. He thought that now the director would be finished the next day at the hotel. The young master called Zaioi. He handed her the flash drive and told her to give the video to the director and tell him to break his contract with the girl group or else his brother will get it. In this case, they won't even pay him anything. The secretary told him she would do it. Muzan was sitting on a chair and drinking her drink. She asked him where he got such confidence from. What kind of video is that? Is it possible to reach an agreement with the director without paying him at all? Dolly smiled calmly and told her that it was possible because there was a very exciting video. She looked at him with interest and told him that she was interested, and then asked him what this video was about. The young master tilted his head to the side and told her that if she called him her husband, he would tell her. Muzan puffed out her cheeks with displeasure and straightened her hair with her hand, and then said that if it was a secret, then she would not ask him about it. Dolly approached her and told her that there was evidence of a love affair between the director and his sister-in-law right in the company building. The boss's elder brother is an influential person in the industry, and therefore his power is very powerful. She opened her eyes wide in surprise and asked him if this was true. How did he know about this? Dolly told her that he had his own methods. Sometime later, on the same day, there was loud screaming in the company building. The boss shouted at the company employee and asked him what the security guards do. Why does he pay them so much money? His face was red with rage. The guy in the blue uniform bowed in front of him and told him that they checked the surveillance cameras and there was nothing recorded on them except the cat. The boss got even more angry. He asked the guard what he was telling him. He shouted to him that he really wanted to tell him that the cat had entered his office and was trying to turn on his computer. So at the same time, the cat filmed him naked. The security guard decided to put all the blame on the cat. Animals are not capable of such abomination. The boss told him they were all fired. He sat down and disgruntledly told him to burn the girl group's contract, let them go wherever they want. He ordered the worker to find the person who decided to compete with him. It's not over yet. Sometime later, in the evening of the same day, there were fireworks near the hotel building. There was a stage set up on the street, so there were a lot of people standing around. People were talking about how cool it is today. The group of guys were fans of the Chekson group. They looked at the stage with loving eyes and said that they did not think that the group would perform at the opening of a 3-star hotel. They were so excited and asked to see it. The girls came onto the stage, they smiled at their audience, and so the crowd of people shouted that it was them. They shouted to them that they loved them. Everyone was shocked. The girls were called beauties. The fan guy was talking about how he was dying. Nyanwei told the crowd that they were having a small concert here today. They won't regret coming here. The man asked who is the owner of this hotel and how did he manage to invite this group to the opening. The spectators did not come here to fill their stomachs. Guy said that staring at girls is more interesting than a dinner party. This hotel used to be a regular eatery. Even though the owner of the hotel has changed, they are still not going to dine here. At this time, Dolly and his wife stood on the hotel balcony. They looked down and watched what was happening. The crowd screamed that they were there for only one reason. After some time, fans asked the band to perform for an encore. Muzan told the young gentleman that this idea did not really save the situation because this hotel had completely lost its reputation. It's time to stop this because the concert won't help them at all. Dolly looked contentedly at the scene and asked her what was so difficult about restoring this hotel's reputation. He called Zaioi. She approached them, and he told her that they had to throw a 3-day banquet for their guests at their expense. He can't believe that he can't keep the guests. The secretary agreed with him. Muzan looked at him displeasedly and asked him if he was really spending money again. She told him that this is a 3-star hotel, and the food will cost them a lot, and they also need to look for good chefs. She asked him if he had enough money for this. Dolly smiled and told her that he just likes to spend money, and then asked her who told her that high-quality products are needed for a banquet. The young master told her that he had his own plan, and then asked her to call all the chefs. Meanwhile, the band had already left the stage, and so the crowd started asking where their stars were. When will the girls take the stage again? A worker in a black suit came onto the stage. He smiled and then bowed in front of the people and told them that it was late and they were probably hungry. He pointed his hand to the side and told the crowd that to repay them for their enthusiasm and get them in the mood for the next concert, all guests were invited to a banquet, which was located in the backyard of the hotel. All this is free, and what's more, the banquet will last 3 days. The crowd screamed. They began to ask, is this really true? The guy with black hair told his friends that recently, some restaurants on this street also hosted such a banquet. Perhaps these establishments have the same owner. The guy with glasses told him that he remembered this, and the owner must be a good person. The hotel will be better with him. The guy with dark hair told them that it didn't matter. They would eat and then judge whether the owner was good or not. It's still free. Suddenly, a huge fat man stood behind them. He shouted at them that they needed to get out of here. They looked at him in surprise. The guy with black hair asked his friend who it was. Behind them stood two huge fat guys. The first guy asked them if this was really a free banquet for 3 days. He laughed disgustingly and said that the Fat Brothers are in business. They came here not to look at the stars, but for food. He loudly called for food to be served. A crowd of people noticed the fat men. They began to discuss them. The man said, "The big stomach of the Fat Brothers Guo is terrible." Another person said they were there because of the smell of free food. People said that this hotel is finished because the Guo brothers have a strong appetite and are very picky. If they don't like the food, they can destroy everything here. Suddenly, the presenter from the stage told everyone that this was nothing. He bowed to his brothers and said that there would be no problem with this because they had thought of everything and they would definitely like it. The host invited everyone to the backyard of the hotel. A crowd of people headed there. They started talking about everyone eating well. They will eat everything. Suddenly, people opened their eyes wide in surprise. In front of them was a huge, beautiful hall. Everything looked elegant. There were large chandeliers on the ceiling. There were several counters in the hall where there were cooks. People asked, "What is this?" The host pointed his hand at the audience and told the crowd that by far their best dish was barbecue, so they prepared the freshest ingredients and unlimited beer. Their chefs will do the cooking. He smiled and told them to enjoy their cook's first masterpiece, and if they didn't like it, they could make their own. He invited them to go inside the hall. Several people approached the counter, and there was food on it. The food looked weird. It was green and brown, so the guy told everyone that it didn't look like barbecue. Another guy asked, "What is this?" He said that he had never seen anything like this. The man asked if it was a big fish. He said that if they lied to them, then the hotel was finished. The Guo brothers had already started eating. They took a few skewers of food and devoured it greedily. The head brother said that he doesn't care because he's hungry, so he'll just try it. He told his brother to break everything if the food didn't taste good, but their dissatisfied faces immediately changed. They blushed and closed their eyes with pleasure. The main brother said it tastes incredible. His brother said it was divine and delicious. They thought that this feeling was similar to how they ran naked across the field as children. The crowd of people immediately became inspired. They began to say that even the Guo brothers liked it, so they would try it too. Everyone was shouting that they wanted food. One person said it was magical. He didn't believe that the most ordinary vegetables could be so tasty. The guy said that he had never tried anything like this, and now he will come here more often. The crowd of people loved the delicious smell of the food. Dolly watched all this. He was still standing on the balcony. He laughed joyfully and told his wife that he had succeeded. Muzan ate the cooked food and really liked it. Her face turned red with pleasure, and she thought that the young master was able to come up with such a way to cook vegetables, and it was very tasty. Is he really the child of rich parents who is burning through the family's money? She wondered where he got such knowledge from. Dolly thought that he knew that barbecue did not exist in this world. Although he has been reborn, life without barbecue is like life without a soul. It deserves to be invented by him. The young master did it. After some time, it was deep night. The moon shone brightly over the Hong family palace. Dolly thought that now there will be an update to the wasteful system. He was sitting in the lotus position on his bed with a yellow screen on top of him. All his indicators increased by 12 points. The young master gained a small abs and muscles in his arms, and he no longer looked like a sick person. Dolly thought that he had done a great job. Every day he becomes stronger. Suddenly, he was interrupted by a knock on the door. He asked who was knocking on his door. It was Muzan, and then he quickly put on a white robe and then went to the door to open it. He told her to come in, and then he opened the door and asked her what she needed at such a late time. His chest was slightly exposed due to his robe. Muzan frowned and told him that he was not Dolly. He opened his eyes wide in surprise and asked her what she meant. She told him that he was not a young master because he was a complete idiot. Dolly asked her, "Then who does she think he is?" She put her hand on his chest and told him he was a fake. After that, she pushed him hard and he fell. Dolly sighed, and she quickly sat on him, so he panicked and asked her what she was doing. Muzan told him that he is a fake because everyone knows that Dolly is stupid and sick. Previously, he invested money without thinking at all, but now he calculates everything down to the details. Therefore, he cannot be Dolly. The young master opened his eyes wide and called her his dear wife, and then told her that she herself told him what to invest in. He asked her if she didn't tell him to buy the restaurant. Wasn't she the one who wanted him to save a group of girls? Wasn't she the one who decided to expand his hotel? Dolly was very nervous. He asked her if she wanted him to buy her everything she wanted. He said he was very lucky to have a wife like her. Muzin told him that she simply increased the invested capital a little, and this was not her merit at all. Her husband extended his hand to her cheek, and she quickly grabbed it and told him not to touch her. What difference does it make if he himself made the decisions about whether to buy something or not? She asked him what other use was there for this money. Dolly told her that if she was going to spend the money, she should call him. He asked her if this was not a loss. He believes her eyes more than his own. The young master told her that this was a double-edged sword. Muzin abruptly stood up from him and told him that he knows how to speak sweet words. She came out of his room and shouted to him that they were going shopping tomorrow. He continued to lie on the floor and agreed with her. Dolly was thinking about what should he do. The next day, they were in a shopping area. Muzin and Dolly were sitting on a bench. He told her that he was tired of walking around the store, and then asked her if they could take a break. He was still using a cane and therefore apologized to her because she was uncomfortable being around a cripple. She calmly drank her drink and told him that it was good for him to walk a lot. He pulled a hot dog out of the bag and asked her if she wanted it. She turned away from him with displeasure and answered him negatively. Dolly told her that he would not insist, and then he put the hot dog in his mouth. But he didn't have time to take a bite because the food disappeared from his hands, so he screamed in displeasure. He asked Muzin what she was doing. The young master told her that he wanted to eat. She sat next to a stray dog and told him that he was a poor fellow. Let the dog eat. She started eating the hot dog, and Dolly pouted his lips and told her that he didn't even have time to eat a small piece. Muzin asked him if he really couldn't find more food. Suddenly, an expensive car drove up to them. The guy said it was disgusting. A guy and a girl came out of this. He told Dolly that since he liked food for dogs, he would give him a couple of set meals for animals. The young master looked at him with irritation and thought that he was a fool. The girl asked him if this was his fiancée. She smiled and blushed, and then told Muzin that she was glad to meet her. The guy asked them, "Isn't she from the Tang family?" He said that his bride was supposed to marry Gigi Dolly, and now she is marrying the younger one. He called her cute, and then told everyone she was still pathetic. The guy blushed and called the girl cousin, and then vulgarly told her that Muzin was far from her. The girl remained silent and looked away, and then smiled again and told Dolly that the family meeting would be in 2 months, and he would be attending there for the first time. She kindly asked him if he was ready for this. The guy told her with a grin how he couldn't be ready. The young master buys all sorts of junk just to spend money. Such a prodigal son would even show up to a meeting without money. He told her with a grin that he was just wasting money. Dolly clenched his teeth and then asked them who they were to interrupt their meal so easily. He asked them if they knew each other at all. He looked serious. The guy got angry and pointed his finger at him, and then asked him if the doctor had really prescribed him completely different pills. Does he not even recognize them? He told his cousin that the young master was doing this on purpose. Apparently, he just didn't want to say hello to them. Dolly looked at them questioningly, and then awkwardly rubbed his neck with his hand and asked his wife if she knew them. She was still sitting by the dog and asked him if he really didn't remember his family. He rubbed his cheek with his finger and thought about how he could know about his relatives if he was not Dolly. The guy smiled and laughed, and then told them that since the young lord had forgotten everything, he would remind him of it. He stood in a strange position, as if he were in an anime, and told Dolly that his father was his father's 4th brother, and he was his cousin. He is the dream of a billion girls because he is more handsome than many actors, and he was his cousin. He pointed to the girl and told him that this beauty from Mu Finjung's family is Mu Yuxi. She is new to the business world. He's accompanying Miss Mu on a shopping spree, and he's going to feed her at a prestigious place. She looked away awkwardly, and the cousin told the young master that she was not like them, and that's why they didn't eat the dog's scraps. Dolly told him that it turned out that he was his cousin, and then asked Yusi if he was very clingy. He told her that his cousin seemed very clingy, and she looked tired of him. The guy immediately got angry, his face turned red, and he clenched his hands into a fist, and then shouted at him not to interfere with them. The young master completely ignored him and asked Yuxi what meeting was she talking about. He told her that he had been bedridden for too long and had actually lost some memory. She told him that a family meeting is held once a year, the main purpose of which is to evaluate the achievements of the family members for the year and allocate resources. It is believed that only one person can receive full help from the family, and they will choose only 3 people to give them the appropriate finances and support. He rubbed his chin with his hand and thought that it sounded tempting. He was wondering how much money they give to the winner. Yuzi told him that they were allocating a whole billion. Muzin and Dolly were surprised. They opened their eyes wide and asked her if this was really true. The young master thought that if he used this money for the spendthrift system, his level would immediately rise. Suddenly his thoughts were interrupted because his cousin laughed. He told Dolly not to even think about it because now he is developing in the entertainment industry, so he has huge profits. He recently bought out a food delivery company and hired a lot of drivers to work for him day and night, and he made a profit. With such success, he definitely received $1 billion, will enter high society and take over other spheres. Eventually, he will become the richest man in the world. Dolly stuck his finger in his nose and thought that his cousin was a moron. He thanked him and told him that now he knew what to prepare for. The cousin went towards Musen, who was sitting next to the dog. She was stroking it. He told the young master that he didn't have to prepare, because it would be a miracle if he took any place at all. He told his cousin that they had to go and leave them to continue eating the dog. He sharply kicked the dog with his foot and cursed, because it was in his way. The dog got angry and growled, and then jumped towards him and bit him on the butt. Cousin Dolly screamed, and his pants were torn at the butt. He ran from the dog and asked to help him. But everyone just looked at him silently. They said that he deserved it. Some time later, it was a beautiful garden. Behind the fence, there was a small white building. Musen asked the young master why he wants to get $1 billion. He thought about it, and then asked him what was wrong with this. She raised her finger up and told him that she didn't care and that it was his business, because everyone dreams of getting $1 billion for nothing. But there is one problem that it will not solve. Last year, Yusi took 7th place. Musen asked him if he knew how to work to get this place. Yuzi invested her father's $20 million in startups. She opened 3 5-star hotels, 5 private clubs, and 11 chain movie theaters in just 2 years, generating more than $90 million in revenue. And even so, she did not make it into the top 3, but took 7th place. Dolly frowned pitifully and told her that it was very difficult. He only has a couple of restaurants, 1 hotel, and a women's group. It is useless for him to dream about it. He asked her how much money she needed to earn to get into the top 3. The young master turned away from her and told her to forget about it, because there were only 2 months left before the meeting. There was no way he would make it to the top 3. He will take care of his lands. Dolly told his wife that they would go shopping. They started to walk towards the stairs, but suddenly they heard a dog barking. They turned in the direction of the sound and saw a man throw a net over a dog. Apparently, these were animal service workers. He was catching stray animals. The dog was panicking and barking loudly, and the workers were telling them to hold him. The man in the cap said that the dog was caught. After that, he laughed sarcastically. Mushin opened her eyes wide and told the workers to stop. She asked them what they were doing. The worker in the cap didn't understand what she wanted from them at first, and then told her that they had just received a message that stray dogs were biting people, so they were sent here to deal with it. The dog lay helplessly in the net, and the worker told Musen that although it's a pity for the animals, they cause people a lot of trouble if they bite someone, so they catch it for later. But he didn't finish the thought, because she worriedly asked him why they were catching dogs. What will they do about it? Will they really take the animals to the shelter? Behind them, there was a small cage. Inside it, there were many stray dogs. The worker asked her where to find such a place in the world. Their maintenance costs a lot of money. Who will pay for it? She told her that if there are people willing to shelter the poor dog within a week, they will be taken away. He smiled and told Musen that they quickly deal with those dogs that were not taken away. She opened her eyes wide in shock and asked him what he meant. Musen said, "Does this really mean?" But she didn't finish the thought because she looked at the cage and said that she was very sorry for the dogs. She grabbed Dolly's hand and anxiously asked him to help. She told him that she couldn't look at it. The young master smiled and calmly closed his eyes, and then told her that he would not have believed it if he had not seen it himself. But now that he sees the dogs trembling with fear, he can't stand it either. He put his hand on his chest and told the workers that he would do everything himself. He will pay for shelter for these homeless animals and provide them with a roof over their heads. The young master will accept these animals with all his heart. Musen joyfully approached him and asked him if he was really telling the truth. She called him well done. He asked her why she was saying this. Dolly told her that but he didn't finish the thought because Musen blushed and smiled sweetly, and then told him that she was happy because he was a very good person. The young master blushed and awkwardly asked her what she meant. After that, he told her that they would do it. First, they need to buy a plot of land and build a real house for the animals. After some time, Musen and Dolly stood on a hill in the mountains. He told her that due to negative development, this land had been abandoned for several years, so he bought it from the owner for $10 million. They'll turn it into a shelter. The young master smiled and told her that he invested all the money he earned in this project, and then asked her she doesn't think that he is a good person. Muzin hugged him and told him that this time he spent the money for good, especially since she herself asked him to do so. He called her a dear wife and told her that he was pleased if he could make her happy with money even a little. Their faces were very close to each other, and Muzin told him that he spent almost all his savings on buying a vacant lot just to please her. He is incredible. He affectionately told her that if he runs out of money, he will earn more. She blushed and closed her eyes, and then told him that he believed him. Suddenly, their idyll was interrupted because a girl in a suit came up behind them. She called Dolly boss and told him that 2 people came here and they were asking how much they could collaborate with a girl group to create a movie soundtrack. They turned to her, and the young master chuckled thoughtfully. Another opportunity to make money has arrived, sometime later, at the Dolly Hotel. 2 men were sitting at a table, eating barbecue and drinking beer. The man with glasses told his partner that this barbecue goes well with beer. He asked how the young master could think of this. The man with glasses said that he heard that Dolly was a stupid spendthrift. He never expected that he was so smart. The man in the cap asked him what he was talking about. He told him that this is simple food and everything depends on them, people obsessed with literature and art. People like Nyanwei are like heavenly treasures to him. The only thing left for them is to conclude a contract with them. The man with glasses told him that he was right. They would use this when they found a music group to record the soundtrack for their film. He laughed contentedly and told him that Dolly would definitely thank them. Then he will lower the price because the young master is still a beginner and doesn't understand anything about this. The door to the room opened. Dolly and the secretary stood on the threshold. She apologized to the guests for having to wait a long time, and then she pointed to her boss and introduced him. The man with glasses was named Shen Wenshi. He was the music director of Penhai Film and TV. He introduced himself and pointed towards his partner and told the boss that his name was Ding Chenjai. He was a famous director. Chenjai told them that he was pleased to meet them. Dolly thought that he was clearly a bad person. He told them it was too noisy and invited them into his office. A couple of minutes later, the young master asked them if they had really come here to find a music group to record the soundtrack for the film. Wenchi spread his hands to the side and answered him in the affirmative, and then told him that at the moment they are preparing to film Wind Chaser, and the soundtrack from a popular girl group could be the title song, It Would Be Cool. He put a stack of papers on the table and told Dolly that this was the script for their film and he could look at it. The most famous screenwriters over these 3 years worked on this. The young master began to read the script and then smiled and asked them what kind of box office results they expected. Chenjai crossed his arms and told him that they were expecting no less than 1.5 billion. Dolly continued to study the script and asked them how much they planned to buy the soundtrack for. Wenchi showed his 5 fingers and said that this is a 500,000 deal, but they can add 50,000 on top. He smiled and asked him what he thought about this. He told him it would be a good deal. The young master abruptly threw the script onto the table and told them that he would consider their suggestions, and then said goodbye to them. The men were surprised. Wenchi opened his eyes wide and asked him, "Is it really impossible to settle this today?" He told him that 100 million yuan had already been invested in the film. This was the greatest investment in the history of the industry. Director Chenjai said that the box office payout would be extremely large. It's a win-win situation, a great chance for his girl group to shine again. They received many offers which they rejected. If Dolly refuses them, he will regret it. He asked him if he was really not confident in his group. The young master looked serious. He told them that he was confident in the girl group, but he did not believe in the success of their film. They expect to make 1.5 billion with such a mediocre script, and so he thinks it's 100 million down the drain. Chenjai was angry. He pointed his finger at him and asked him what he was talking about. How can he look down on him? He told him that he should look at their previous projects because it raised a lot of money. The girl group is popular because of their songs, not because of Dolly. Chenjai called him a non-entity. Dolly looked calm. He sat and picked his nose with his finger. Wenchi patted his partner's shoulder with his palm and told him to calm down. He smiled awkwardly and told him that the company sent them here to negotiate. Work is the most important thing for them. The director couldn't calm down. He snorted loudly and told Wenchi that the young master was looking down on them. Dolly, without interest, told them that he had seen some of their films, but he watched 10 minutes of each film before falling asleep. The plot was bad and childish, the special effects were terrible, and the actors looked like their faces were paralyzed. They can't even speak their lines. There is no way such crappy movies can be popular, or people in this world haven't seen a good movie yet. He told them that if they let the girls record the title track for the film for them, they would lose their popularity along with them. Chenjai seemed to be burning with rage. He told him not to regret it in the future, because he doesn't understand anything about it. Guanchi told the young master that he was saying terrible things. They came here to talk, and if this is unacceptable, then they will leave right now. The guests got up and walked towards the exit, but the director still could not calm down. He grunted displeasedly and told his partner that Dali did not know how to praise the beautiful. Zayoi looked at them in surprise, and then walked to the boss's desk and told him that Penhai was the most successful company at the moment. She asked him if he was sure that he did not want to cooperate with them. Dali smiled calmly and told her that he had found out that they were so arrogant only because they had no competitors. If they released a movie like this in his world, it would be at extinction level. Undoubtedly, such a film would be considered terrible. The secretary asked him what does it mean in his world. The young master told her not to worry about it. He handed her the document and said that it was a list of people and she needed to contact them. Some of these people are old-fashioned movie stars, some are tech nerds, and some are martial artists with talents unknown to the public. Zayoi took the document in her hands and opened her eyes wide, and then asked the boss, what will he do with these people? Dali told her that he also wanted to make his own film for fun. After some time, the filming of the Penhai company took place. Filming has begun. There were several people standing on the street, the director, cameraman, actors, and other people. The guy asked the girl not to leave. He told her that they could stay together forever. She told him to forget about it, because she had been in love with Mr. Kumwang for 3 years. She asked him to pretend that he felt sorry for her. He asked her what she meant. After that, tears appeared in his eyes and he sighed heavily, and then told her that he was truly sorry. But he didn't finish his thought because Chenjai shouted at him. The actor turned to him and asked the director what happened. He walked up to him and pointed his finger at him, and then asked the guy what he was playing. The actor told him that But he didn't finish the thought because Chenjai continued to shout at him and ask him what he was playing. Does he really want to ruin the movie? He was very angry, drool was flying out of his mouth, and he told him that this character is supposed to be emotional, and then asked the guy what he was doing. Is he even an actor or not? The guy frowned pitifully and told Chenjai that he was just. But the director interrupted him again and told him not to say anything. He pointed his finger at the guy in the purple suit and called him to them. The director told him to try and show the actor how to act. The guy in the suit smiled and told him he would do it. The workers shouted that the scheme had begun. The guy in the purple suit cried and spread his arms to his sides, and then called the girl his beloved and asked her not to leave. He asked her how he would live without her. The girl closed her eyes and told him to forget about it, because she had been in love with Mr. Bahawang for 3 years. She asked him to just pretend that he felt sorry for her. The guy fell to his knees, he opened a bottle of water and poured it all over himself. After that, he screamed and told her that starting from today, until the wind blows and the rain stops, he will never love another. He cried and shouted to her that she could leave, but he still wouldn't love anyone. Chenjai asked the first actor if he saw it. He told him it's called acting. This is a normal emotional scene of betrayal. If this actor were not a highly paid employee, he would never have cast such a newcomer in his film. He pointed his finger at him and told him to play just like the guy in the suit, otherwise he would fly out of here. The guy panicked, but suddenly a message arrived on his phone. He looked at the phone screen and asked, "What is this?" His eyes widened in shock, and he did not notice anything around him, and Chenjai continued to poke his finger at him. He called him trash and told him he was talking to him. A person like him can only act in Guo Jinman's films. The young rookie actor chuckled smugly, then pushed the director with his hand and told him to get the hell away from him. He's quitting. In the evening of the same day. It was a tiny apartment. The lights in the house were no longer on, but one window still glowed. Crumpled papers were falling on the floor, and a girl in a white coat was sitting at the computer. She had confusion in her head and bags under her eyes from lack of sleep. She wondered if the script was still not good enough, even though she had been rewriting it for 3 days and 2 nights. There was a chat with the employer on the computer screen. He asked her if she had rewritten the script. How much longer does he have to repeat to her that this is written for the actors and not for the meaning? The employer wrote to her that men are more arrogant and women are emotional and their opponents are smart. People look at the main character, not her plot. Her story I'm Not a Medical Fairy was good, but she wrote it several years ago. Apparently times change good writers. He wrote to her that she needed to change the script to suit them. Otherwise, she won't get the money. The girl covered her eyes with her hand and said that she couldn't stand it anymore. Suddenly, a notification arrived on her phone. She looked at the phone screen and opened her eyes wide. It was written that she had great talent and the sender of the message needed it. The girl screamed in shock because they sent her 1 million to her account. The message said that she should come to the specified address and join their team. She happily agreed to this. After this notice, she wrote to her employer that she was quitting. In addition, she sent a picture of a boy showing his middle finger. The next day in a country park, there was a huge rocket on the site and there were cars around it. Not far from this was a girl with blue hair. She was sitting on a white motorcycle and typing something on her laptop. Not far from her, there were passers-by who were walking in this park. The guy asked his friends if this was a real rocket. His friend in the red hat told him that the rocket was not flying. They wouldn't be able to tell by looking at it. He looked at the girl with blue hair and told his friends that she didn't care about work at all and was only posing for a video and called her a child. The guy told them that the rocket could actually fly. A dog pooped next to them, and a guy in a red hat told him that this couldn't be happening. He pointed his finger towards the dog's excrement and told him that if the rocket really floated, he would eat it. The girl pressed the keyboard and said that she was launching a rocket. After this, the rocket flew high into the sky, and therefore thick smoke rose around. The guys shielded themselves from the wind with their hands and were surprised that the rocket worked. The guy shouted to his friend that he had lost the bet. The guy in the red hat sighed heavily. Suddenly, the girl with blue hair received a notification. She looked at her digital watch and was surprised. Dolly wrote to her. She said it was interesting. After that, she suddenly started her motorcycle and quickly drove away. Some time later, Liu Yikai is a new ambitious actor with original ideas, but he is not taken into big movies because he does not want to cry on camera. Dolly told him that he only gets small roles with a minimum number of lines. It just doesn't allow him to shine. Jang Xiaoyu was a screenwriter for old films and TV. She wrote many excellent scripts, but unfortunately, her work was plagiarized by unscrupulous authors. This broke her, and her fans began to hate her for discriminating against autism. The young master told her that her previous success was not important now, so she could only write inferior essays. Lin Chine was considered by her teachers and parents to be the weakest student. She likes to invent small things, but she lacks resources. It only relies on recycled waste for fittings and again uses this to create technological innovations, which is hard. Dolly smiled and spread his hands to the sides, and then told them that in the future he would try to provide them with the resources and space they needed and freedom of creativity. He told them they could build a career together. Hikai sighed heavily, his eyebrows were furrowed, and he asked Dolly what he meant. The young master told them that he wanted to make a movie. Everyone was surprised. They asked him if it was true. He looked confident and told them they had it right. He wants to create a film without following trends, without popular movie stars, and without compromising the audience's ick. He thought about this for a long time, and only they can help him. Xiaoyu was a little tense. She told Dolly that his idea was very good, but also very bad. She told him that she was no longer held in high esteem because she had no fans, and even if the filming was successful, most likely it would still be a failure. She asked the young master if he really wanted them to work for him. He raised his finger and told her that worrying about profit and loss was his business. They are not responsible. They are only required to participate in the project. In addition to payment, they will enter into an agreement that as long as the film makes him a profit, they will be provided for. He asked them if this was not a good deal. Their eyes lit up with happiness, their faces turned red, they even jumped on the spot, and then told him that this was a great deal. Dolly told them that he needed them to do some things temporarily. He told Yikai that he was giving him a month to get pumped up because they were going to be casting strong guys. The actor looked at him confidently and told him that he would do it. The young master told Xiaoyu that he already had an outline for the script, but she had to fill in all the details. She could write as she wanted. She told him to leave it to her. Dolly told Cyan that she would help create the props. He will fully provide her with the necessary materials and tell her about the specific purpose of each item. She told him that she would try to give her 100%. Everyone was inspired. After some time, evening had already come. Nyanwei came into Dolly's office, and he told her that he wanted her to play a role in his film. She was surprised and asked him what he meant. The soloist told him that she only knew how to sing, and she had never studied acting. She doesn't play well. The young master smiled kindly and told her that he was not forcing her to do this. If she wants, she can miss this opportunity. Then he will offer the same to her teammates. He asked her, who else should he find? Nainwei smiled awkwardly and told him to let her participate, but she will still tell her partners that the young master is giving them the opportunity to play a role in the film. He smiled contentedly and told her that then everything was decided. Now they are a sought-after newcomer in the entertainment industry. He just can't help but provide them with a good script. Nainwei left the office, and after that Muzan approached Dolly. She looked at him and told him that he had been working for a very long time, and he told her that Chenjai would regret how arrogant he acted. He really thought Dolly was a fool. His fiancée kindly told him that he needed to get some rest. The young master smiled and told her that he was getting angrier and angrier. He wants to make a movie and release it at the same time as their movie. Even if it is his failure, he must expose Chenjai. Besides that, he doesn't think their film will be a flop. Muzan leaned close to his ear and told him that she knew that he was very confident, so she wished him success in this endeavor. But making a film is expensive, and he recently bought a vacant lot for her. She asked him if he really had any money left to make the film. He took out his phone and then smiled slyly and told her that even if he had no money, he would find investors. Dolly asked her if his parents were tyrants. He called his mom, so she greeted him and asked him why he was calling her. He explained the situation to her, and she asked him if he really wanted her to invest in making films. Will he need $1 billion? She smiled and told him that he had dreams, and that's why she would support him. She will transfer the money to Dolly a little later. Her husband looked at her with wide eyes. He told her that it was a considerable sum, and then asked her if she would just give the money to him. The young master's mother told her husband that she is happy when her son is happy. She asked her husband if he hadn't noticed that their son had become more energetic. Dolly's mother told him that their son's body had become noticeably stronger and he had become wiser. This is good. Her husband smiled and told her that it was up to her to decide what to do. He showed her the newspaper and asked her to look at it. The young master's father told her that the city planning policy had come up with a plan to urbanize the wasteland in the east of the city. She was surprised and asked him, "Is this really a land where no one lives?" He told her that someone had invested over $30 million in building a high-end amusement park called a Disney park. In this case, the area in the district will develop. This is a great business opportunity. His wife told him he needed to buy it or else the prices would go up later. This is a great investment. He told her that it was too late to do this because this piece of land was bought by a mysterious boss for $10 million 2 days ago. Dolly's mother asked her husband in surprise, "Who is this lucky guy?" He said it should be in the report, so they started looking for it. His mother asked him what kind of person Han was. She said that the mysterious boss has the same last name as them. Suddenly, they opened their eyes wide in shock. It was written there that their son had bought the land a month later. It was the filming of the film Wind Hunter. The workers were bustling around. They asked where the assistant was. Another person was telling everyone to check their speed because they were starting in 10 minutes. Chenjai asked Wenshi why the lead actress didn't come today. He angrily told him that the film had not been finished yet. Then she told the director to control his emotions. Chenjai made a dissatisfied face and told him that it was all bullshit. He considered her almost a goddess, and she forgets her lines every day. He wants another actress, and now she doesn't come to filming at all. The director asked Venchi how this film could even be made. He told Chenjai that the actress was indeed a top-level actress, so her arrogance was normal. He offered to bring her understudy and replace her face during editing. He asked Chenjai if he agreed that it could work. The director stood up. He was very angry and told all the workers to turn on the camera. We didn't wait for the actress and started. He gave everyone instructions on what to do. In the background, there were 2 actresses. They were suspended by a rope and seemed to be flying in the air. Chenjai thought that he had been in the industry for 5 years, and an attractive first-class actress paired with an actor would lead him to win the annual box office competition. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by Venchi because he came up to him and whispered in his ear that he had heard interesting news. Chenjai looked at him with a serious face and then loudly asked him what he meant. Is Dolly also making his own film? Wenshi smiled and answered him in the affirmative, and then told him that the young master used to be a prodigal son who didn't understand anything, but now he started making films. He uses Nainwei as a hostess. Chenjai crossed his arms and told him that last time he came to Dolly to ask Nainwei for his film, he must have known her worth. After that, he asked him what kind of actors he would have and who was writing the script. Wenshi leaned towards his ear and told him that the actor was an unknown newcomer to the industry, but their scriptwriter was interesting. It was Zioyu. Chenjai thought for a moment, and then asked him why he didn't sue her with the help of a nationally recognized screenwriter, accusing her of plagiarism. When she made a sly expression and told him